There is a number in the title of this video, and it is a big one. And the moment you saw it, one of two things happened in your head. Either you rolled your eyes because it sounds impossible, or something in your gut tightened because you have been watching this metal long enough to wonder. I want to talk to the second person because the number is not really the story. The story is what sits underneath it, in the vaults, in the parts of this market that never make the evening broadcast. If you own silver right now, or you have been thinking about it, this matters to you in a way the financial channels will never spell out. They will argue about the price all day long. They will tell you it is too high, or a bubble, or a distraction from stocks. What they will not do, what they almost never do, is walk you down the stairs into the room where the actual metal is kept and let you count what is really there. That is the room we are going into today. And I promise you, by the time we are done, you will understand something about that big number that the people who trade against you would very much prefer you never learned. So let me give you the first piece right up front, because I do not believe in making you wait for the meat of it. Here is a durable fact that has nothing to do with today's price. The world has now run a structural silver shortage for 6 straight years. 6 years in a row, the amount of silver pulled out of the ground and recycled has not been enough to meet the amount the world actually uses and wants. That gap gets filled from somewhere. It gets filled from stockpiles, from metal that was already sitting in vaults, already counted, already there. And when you spend down a stockpile year after year after year, there is a very simple question nobody on television wants to ask out loud. How much is actually left? And how much of what is left is truly available to buy? Hold on to that question, because it is the whole video. That is the part they leave out. Not the target, the squeeze underneath the target. Now let me tell you where the real metal lives, because most people picture it wrong. When traders in the West talk about the price of silver, they are mostly talking about two places. One is a set of trading pits and warehouses in New York, where paper contracts change hands. The other is London. London is the quiet giant. For generations, London has been the great physical clearinghouse of the precious metals world, the place where the enormous vaults sit, where central banks and big institutions have historically parked real bars. When you hear the phrase the spot price, you are hearing an echo of London. It is the plumbing under the whole system. And here is what has been happening in that plumbing, the thing that does not make the headlines. Those London silver vaults have been drawing down. The stockpile has been shrinking. Metal has been leaving. And this is not a rumor or a conspiracy. It is the visible reality of a two-speed market, where the gold in those same vaults has been holding up or growing, while the silver quietly walks out the door. Some of it has been pulled east. Some of it has been pulled to New York to satisfy contracts, and then, in stretches, pulled back again. The point is the direction. The physical silver in the deepest, most important vault system in the Western world has been going down, not up. Now, here is where it gets serious, and here is the part that the big banks and the trading desks absolutely do not want the average retiree to understand. Because when you hear there are still large amounts of silver sitting in those London vaults, you might think, well, there is plenty, panic over. But that is where the trick is hiding. Because a very large share of the silver sitting in London is not free. It is already spoken for. It is not available at any price, because it belongs to somebody else already. Let me explain that, because it is the hinge of the entire argument. A lot of people, when they want exposure to silver, do not buy coins or bars. They buy a fund, an exchange-traded product, a ticker that trades on the stock market, and is supposed to hold real silver on their behalf. And the biggest of those funds store their metal in exactly those London vaults. So when you look at the total pile of silver in London and feel reassured, you are counting metal that is already owned by the shareholders of those funds. It is allocated. It is locked. It cannot be sold to the next buyer who shows up because it is not for sale. It is standing behind somebody's shares. So the real question is never how much silver is in the vault. The real question is how much of it is loose, how much is unspoken for, uncommitted, genuinely available to the next hand that reaches for it. And that number, the true free float, is a small fraction of the headline pile. Strip out what the funds already claim. Strip out what is committed. And what is left, the metal actually available to clear the next wave of buying, is thin. Thin in a way that would shock most people who own silver and have never once been told this. Now stack that on top of the 6-year shortage. You have a stockpile that has been shrinking for years, and the slice of it that is truly for sale is a sliver of the whole. That is the squeeze. That is the mechanism the target number is really about. Not sentiment, not a meme, a physical bottleneck where a small amount of genuinely available metal sits underneath a mountain of paper claims and industrial demand that never stops. And I want to be honest with you about who profits from you not knowing this, because the price of silver you see quoted is set day to day in the paper market, not the physical one. It is set by contracts, by leverage, by trading desks moving positions in sizes that dwarf the actual metal changing hands. Those desks make their money on the churn, on your fear, on getting you to sell into a dip and buy into a rip. And a calm holder who understands that the physical floor under this market is far tighter than the paper price suggests is a much harder customer to shake loose. Your understanding is bad for their business. That is not a theory. That is just how the incentives run. Let me pause here, because this is exactly the point where I need to talk to you directly about your own money, and then I will get right back to the vaults. If you are anywhere near retirement, or already in it, the thing you are trying to protect is not a lottery ticket. It is the money you spent 40 years building. And here is something the financial media rarely frames honestly. The biggest, most sophisticated buyers on the planet, the central banks, have been accumulating gold at a record pace, more than 1,000 tons a year for 3 years running, roughly double what they bought in the decade before. They are not chasing a trade. They are protecting themselves. And there is a little-known, perfectly legal way for an ordinary American to do the very same thing inside the retirement account they already have. You can move a portion of an existing 401k or IRA into physical gold and silver, real metal, without triggering taxes and without paying an early penalty, using what is called a self-directed precious metals IRA. I put together a free guide that walks through exactly how it works. This is not just for insiders or the wealthy. If you have $100,000 or more in any retirement account, this is for you. If you are watching this on your television, just scan the QR code on your screen. If you are on your phone or your computer, go to jeffreedguide.com. Take a look and then come right back, because the next part is where this really opens up. All right, let me widen the lens, because the London Drawdown is not happening in a vacuum. It is one wall of a room that is closing in from several sides at once. Look east. For years, China was a net exporter of silver, a place that sent metal out into the world. That has flipped. China has turned into a sizable net importer, pulling physical silver in rather than sending it out. And at the stress points, the price of silver inside China has traded at a steep, sustained premium over the Western price, a double-digit gap that says something very simple. Over there, the demand for the real thing is outrunning the supply of the real thing, and buyers are willing to pay up to get their hands on actual metal. Metal is being pulled east, out of the very vaults we just discussed, toward a market that is hungry for it. That is another straw in the same milkshake. Now look at what silver is actually for, because this is where it separates from gold in a way that matters enormously. Gold is hoarded. It gets bought, it goes into a vault, and it mostly sits there, and almost none of it is ever destroyed. Silver is different. Silver is burned. A huge share of the silver mined every year is consumed by industry. It goes into solar panels, into electronics, into the wiring of the modern world, in tiny amounts. A little dab here, a thin trace there, spread across billions of devices. And because it is spread so thin, it is almost never economical to recover. It gets used, and it is effectively gone. Gold is hoarded, silver is burned. That single sentence explains why a silver shortage behaves so differently from anything you would expect in the gold market. And yes, I will be fair, because I am not here to sell you a fantasy. Some of that industrial demand has softened at the edges. When prices run high, engineers get clever, and the amount of silver used in each solar panel has been trimmed. There has been real thrifting, real substitution, and that is a genuine headwind you should know about. But at the same time, the enormous build-out of data centers and artificial intelligence infrastructure, the electrification of cars, all of that is quietly absorbing metal from the other direction. The demand side shifts and moves. The supply side, the shrinking above-ground stockpile and the thin free float, is the harder wall, and that wall does not move quickly. Now here is the midpoint turn, the part that actually changes how you should think about all of this. Because you might be listening and saying, Jeff, If the physical is so tight, why is the price not screaming higher every single day? Why does it drop? Why did it just pull hard off its highs? And that question is the most important one in this entire video, so let me answer it plainly. The price you see is the paper price, and the paper price can be pushed around hard by things that have nothing to do with the metal in the vault. Think back to what happened in the spring of 2011 when silver was pressing against the same ceiling it had touched decades earlier. The exchanges raised the cost of holding a silver contract again and again in quick succession. Nothing about the actual metal changed. Not 1 ounce vanished from a vault. But the cost of holding a leveraged position went up. Forced holders had to sell, and the price fell by about 30% in a matter of days. The exchange did not move the metal. It moved the cost of holding the metal, and the paper price obeyed. That is the divergence you are living through right now. On one side, the physical market keeps tightening. The vaults keep drawing down. The East keeps pulling. On the other side, the paper price can be knocked back by a hawkish central bank, by a change in the cost of leverage, by a wave of speculators being flushed out. With the Fed's stance now clear under Kevin Warsh and the paper crowd crowded and nervous, the metal can absolutely correct and shake, even while the real thing gets scarcer underneath. Paper price and physical reality pulling in opposite directions. That gap is not a contradiction. That gap is the whole opportunity, and it is exactly what they do not want you staring at too closely. So let me connect this all the way back to the number in the title. Could silver reach a level that sounds absurd today? I am not going to promise you a price, and I would be lying to you if I did. Nobody knows the number, and nobody knows the timing. But here is what history whispers. Silver has run up to its old ceiling twice, once at the start of the 1980s, and again about 31 years later. And both times it got there on a wave of physical demand, meeting a market that suddenly realized it did not have enough loose metal to go around. And here is the fact almost nobody mentions. That old high, adjusted for what a dollar was actually worth back then, sits far above its plain nominal level, up in the low 3 figures in today's money. Silver has never once reclaimed that inflation-adjusted high, not in more than 40 years. The base beneath this metal is nearly half a century long. A move that sounds crazy in nominal terms is, in real terms, just silver getting back to a place it has already been. And that is the mechanism a target number is really pointing at. Not hype, a tiny free float, a 6-year deficit, a metal that gets burned instead of hoarded, and a Western vault system quietly bleeding metal to the east, all sitting under a paper price that can be pushed down in the short run. You do not need a crazy story to imagine what happens when genuine demand meets a free float that thin. You just need to understand that the loose metal is not there in the quantity everyone assumes. Now let me talk to you about your own position, because understanding this is worthless if you handle it wrong. First, if you decide silver belongs in your plan, own the metal, not a paper promise. The entire lesson of the vault is that a claim on silver is not the same as silver. Second, size it so that a shakeout can never force your hand. The paper price will drop. It will scare you. If you are so stretched that a pullback forces you to sell at the bottom, you have handed the trading desks exactly what they wanted. Own it in a size you can hold through the noise. Third, do not sell into the shakeout. The whole game on their side is to frighten weak hands into dumping real metal into a dip. Do not be the paying customer. This is a case. It is not a guarantee, and it is not personal financial advice. Volatility in this metal is real, and it is brutal, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling you something. Now, here is the part 1 I have been building toward, the recognition moment. I want you to sit with it. Right now, this understanding is not mainstream. The pension funds are not talking about the London free float. The financial media is not walking anyone down into the vault to count the loose metal. The central banks already see it, which is exactly why they are buying a real gold hand over fist and storing it where no one else can freeze it or claim it. The smart money is already positioned. You are early. And being early feels strange because nothing feels urgent and the crowd is not here yet. But that is the whole point. By the time this is obvious, by the time it leads every broadcast and every advisor at every bank is recommending it, the easy part will already be behind us. The metal will already have moved. Nobody is going to call you and tell you the free float ran out. Nobody sends you an invitation to the thing before it happens. The invitation is understanding it while it is still quiet. And right now, it is still quiet. Which brings me back to where we started, to the number in the title and the room underneath it. What they will not tell you about that big silver number is that it was never really about sentiment or momentum or a meme. It is about a physical squeeze that already exists, right now, in volts you will never see, where the metal that is truly for sale is a thin sliver under a mountain of claims. They will argue about the price. They will never take you down the stairs and let you count. Today, you counted. If you watch this all the way to the end, you are exactly the kind of person this last part is for. For viewers with $100,000 or more in a retirement account, I hold a free one-on-one educational web conference, no obligation and no pressure, where we walk through how this actually works for your specific situation, how the self-directed precious metals IRA lets you hold real gold and silver inside the account you already have. Just mention that you watched this video all the way through. And here is the honest why now. The moment to make a calm, careful decision about protection is precisely the moment when nothing feels like an emergency, when the price is quiet and the crowd has not arrived. That window is open right now, and windows like this do not stay open once everyone is looking. If you are watching on your television, scan the QR code on your screen. If you are on your phone or your computer, go to jeffreyguide.com. Come talk to us while it is still early, because early is the only edge that was ever really available to you. And today, you got it.